If you were young in the mid-2000s, Ed Hardy wasn't just clothing. Ed Hardy was everywhere. Not quietly, not subtly, but loudly, unapologetically, impossible to ignore. You saw it glowing under nightclub lights. You saw it stretched across backs in music videos. You saw it on red carpets, reality shows, airport terminals, and magazine covers. Ed Hardy didn't just exist in the culture. For a moment, it was the culture. It was a signal, a declaration, a way of saying I belong to this era. And then, almost overnight, it vanished. The shirts disappeared from stores. Celebrities quietly stopped wearing it. The logo that once screamed relevance suddenly whispered embarrassment. So what happened? How did a brand that once dominated fashion, music, and pop culture collapsed so completely? This is not a story about mocking trends or laughing at the past. This is a story about speed, about ego, about culture moving faster than companies can keep up. This is the real rise and fall of Ed Hardy, before the brand. Long before Ed Hardy became a logo, it was a name. Don Ed Hardy was not a fashion designer chasing hype. He was a tattoo artist. Born in 1945, Hardy grew up fascinated by tattoos at a time when tattooing was still considered underground, rebellious, and even taboo. Tattoos were not art galleries. They were not luxury. They were associated with bikers, sailors, prisoners, and outsiders. But Hardy saw something different. He traveled to Japan and studied traditional Irizumi tattooing, an ancient art form rich with symbolism, mythology, and discipline. Dragons, koi fish, skulls, tigers. Each image carried meaning, not just shock value. Hardy brought this philosophy back to the United States and helped elevate tattooing from subculture to art form. He wasn't selling rebellion. He was preserving heritage. By the 1990s, Don Ed Hardy was a legend in tattoo circles. But legends don't always translate to mass markets. That translation would come from someone else. Christian Audigier was the opposite of Don Ed Hardy in almost every way. Where Hardy was quiet, Audigier was flamboyant. Where Hardy respected tradition, Audigier chased visibility. Where Hardy cared about art, Audigier cared about attention. Audigier was a French designer with an instinct for celebrity culture. Before Ed Hardy, he had already worked with brands like Diesel and Bondage. He understood something crucial about the d'office. Fashion was no longer about quality. It was about visibility. If people saw it enough, they would want it. If celebrities wore it, it would sell. If it stood out, it would dominate. Audigier licensed Don Ed Hardy's tattoo art and transformed it into apparel. Hats, jeans, jackets, everything became loud. Skulls with wings, screaming tigers, roses wrapped around daggers, names written in aggressive script. It wasn't minimal. It wasn't subtle. It was designed to be seen from across the room. Ed Hardy didn't rise by accident. It rose because it arrived at the perfect cultural moment. The early to mid-2000s were obsessed with excess. Reality TV was exploding. Celebrity culture was becoming unavoidable. People wanted to be seen, photographed, noticed. Minimalism felt boring. Quiet luxury didn't exist yet. Logos were power. Ed Hardy fit the mood exactly. It felt rebellious without being dangerous, edgy without being political, wild without requiring thought. You didn't need to understand tattoo culture to wear Ed Hardy. Celebrities made it mainstream. Paris Hilton, Britney Spears, Madonna, Justin Timberlake, MMA fighters, rappers, reality TV stars. Everywhere you looked, someone important was wearing it. And once celebrities wore it, everyone followed. By the late 2000s, Ed Hardy was no longer just a brand. It was an empire. Stores opened around the world. Licensing deals exploded. The logo appeared on everything imaginable. Shirts, shoes, belts, perfume, energy drinks, even furniture. Sales skyrocketed into the hundreds of millions. At its peak, Ed Hardy was making more than $700 million annually. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. The very strategy that made Ed Hardy successful was quietly destroying it. There is a hidden danger in popularity. When something is everywhere, it stops being special. Ed Hardy didn't just sell a lot. It sold too much. The designs became repetitive. The licensing became uncontrolled. The brand lost its scarcity. Once something appears in luxury malls, street markets, outlet stores, and discount racks at the same time, its meaning changes. What once felt exclusive began to feel cheap. Even worse, Ed Hardy became associated with caricature. People no longer saw rebellion. They saw excess. They saw a parody. And culture is ruthless when it decides something is uncool. Fashion doesn't decline slowly, it drops. By the early 2010s, culture shifted. Minimalism returned. Streetwear evolved. Logos became ironic, then understated. Ed Hardy stood frozen in time. The same skulls. The same fonts. The same aggression. What once screamed confidence now whispered desperation. Celebrities moved on. Influencers stopped posting it. Consumers followed silently. No announcement. No farewell. Behind the scenes, problems multiplied. Christian Audigier clashed with partners. Legal disputes emerged. Financial management unraveled. Don Ed Hardy distanced himself from the brand that bore his name. The art that once held meaning was now mass-produced noise. By the time leadership realized what was happening, it was too late. Ed Hardy wasn't hated. It was ignored. And in fashion, irrelevance is death. By the mid-2010s, Ed Hardy stores closed. Revenue collapsed. The brand faded into cultural memory. Occasionally, it resurfaced, worn ironically or referenced nostalgically. But irony is not dominance. Nostalgia is not power. Ed Hardy became a symbol of a specific era, not a timeless brand. Ed Hardy's story is not unique. It is a warning. Trends move faster than companies. Culture punishes excess. Visibility without restraint destroys identity. The brand didn't fail because people hated it. It failed because it stopped listening. Ed Hardy ruled an era because it understood the moment perfectly. But it died because it refused to evolve. The design stayed the same while the audience grew older. The logos got bigger while the meaning got thinner. And somewhere between mass production and maximum visibility, the brand lost the mystery that made it powerful in the first place. This is how trends really die. Not with headlines, not with scandals, but quietly when people stop wearing them, stop talking about them, and stop seeing themselves in them. And Ed Hardy isn't alone. History is filled with brands that once ruled the streets, the screens and the spotlight, only to vanish when they stopped listening to the culture that built them. So the real question isn't what happened to Ed Hardy, it's who's next. Because fashion will always crown a king, and it will always be ready to replace one.